That's actually a good topic to start the podcast with. Why was there an office chair in the middle of the parking lot when I pulled up? Does anyone know? Because it was our office chair.
It's some chili. I heard him talking something about a backpack blower and a YouTube video. And
Did you figure it out, Corn?
Well,
What was going on?
Chili was going to throw that chair away the other day, and I told him go for it, throw it away, because we've stood in it so much, it's destroyed it. Like you can't sit in it; it'll throw you out on the floor. And he's like, "Well, no." I'm like, "Well, why not? It's Blake's. I gotta ask Blake." I said, "Blake don't care. Let's throw it. We'll either throw it away or keep it for scrap." So he's supposed to ask you if we could throw it away.
I told him to throw it away. It's actually
But
Chad's
that
office
doesn't
chair.
explain why it was in the middle of the parking lot.
Well, I wasn't around for that. That's a mystery to me too.
This is what happened. Chili said he was going to go throw it away, but he'll avoid that manual labor like the plague. And he got started across that parking lot, and he said, it is way too hot to go
Chili
all the way.
ain't going to do a lick of manual labor.
He said it is way too far and hot, and he just turned around and abandoned mission.
That is probably exactly what happened.
Yep, it is.
I mean, that's a good point. I've never seen Chili do manual labor.
He ain't going to.
Could you imagine, like watching him try to build something out of wood, like swing a hammer or cut
Dig a
something
ditch
with a
or something?
saw or use a shovel or something like that? Could you imagine how awkward that would be?
Yeah.
I don't even know if he'd be able to figure out how to wrap his hands around a shovel. He'd be like, he wouldn't be able to figure out how to grip a shovel.
Dang, chill.
It would be the funniest thing ever.
It probably looked like an office chair in the middle of the parking lot.
I think what's going on is since this space that we pay for to do our podcast in, the owners apparently do not want to keep their air conditioning units in working order, and so it's been so hot in here, it's been like a sweatshop, and I was thinking when I pulled up, because I pull up and your Land Cruiser has got stuff hanging all over it.
Yeah, it's drying out.
Spread out on the hood, hanging off the mirrors. There's an office chair, busted office chair in the middle of the parking lot. I'm thinking, I wonder if they're trying to get us kicked out of here because the air conditioner doesn't work. And I guess if we get kicked out, that would force us into a position where we had to find an actual usable space.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what crossed my mind. Hey, today's podcast is brought to you by our partner at Drink HOIST. And let me tell you right now, it is hot in Georgia right now. I'm talking about slam dog days. I mean, this is when you hear the dog days, this is it. I mean, the cicadas are making their racket. The dog, you let the dog out in the yard, he don't even go nowhere. Lays under the porch in the dirt.
It's going to be fun for that rock, bub.
Yeah, and so HOIST, this is a great time of year. If you haven't tried HOIST, it's a great time of year to go ahead and order you a case and take it with you and use this throughout the day to stay hydrated and see the difference that it's going to make in how you feel, especially if you're running. I'm going to tell you what, you come off a hot run and you got a bottle of cold HOIST, son, I'm talking about it's like eating a T-bone steak. It hits the spot.
You just start wanting it halfway through your run.
You really do.
Yeah.
And we've got the new powder now.
Oh, yeah.
With no dyes in it.
Oh, dude.
That's for the ROP course coming up. We're gonna be you doling that out at ROP, ain't you?
Yeah. That watermelon flavor, I don't know how much of it they sent, but that watermelon flavor powder, son. It tastes like a Jolly Rancher.
Dang. No preservatives. Hydrates better than water. Sits well with your stomach.
And that's going to be clear?
It's all the powder's all
Just
clear.
like this now. This is all clear in this bottle right here. Made in the USA. Check them out at drinkhoist.com. Hoist, thank you for making this episode possible. I'm telling you guys, it's good stuff. Drinkhoist.com. Go get you some, man. Well, I'll tell you what, Blake. Well, you were gone to Kenya. And, you know, I want to talk to you about your trip. And, you know, talk to obviously the listeners so they get to hear what you went out there and did and all that. But I'll tell you, man, it ain't the same around here without you.
Oh, yeah?
I got to thinking, I said, man, if Blake dies and goes on from here, it's going to be rough.
I might, too.
Yeah, I mean, we're all headed that way,
Yeah.
you know, but I thought I'll tell you what, you know what, man, I hope I die before you.
I've always thought I'll die an early death. So,
I hope I go before you, man, because I ain't trying to be around here much without you.
When did you start thinking that?
I've always thought that.
Well, it don't really matter what you think about it.
No, it don't.
You know? You can think all you want about it. You don't know what's going to take you out. But I don't know. I missed him. Did y'all miss him at all?
Yeah, I missed him.
Yeah, it's different when anybody's gone. You know, it's weird.
Well, I guess it's usually I'm the one that's gone. If you think about it, most of the time it's usually not Blake. It's not Chili for sure since he's been married.
Yeah.
Cornbread, he claims he ain't got money enough to go anywhere. Isn't that right?
That's what he says.
Yeah. So
Shed put him 3 years behind.
yeah, he claims he can't go anywhere because he won't be able to eat while he's traveling. So it's usually me that's gone because obviously I've got the money, I've got the skills.
That's what your hat allows too.
I mean,
Ability.
I've got the ability, I've got the drive, even in my old age. So
Yeah.
I guess that's why it was different. You know, y'all are usually the ones that are here without me, you know, and y'all going to have to, look, y'all got a long pull without the old bull coming up.
Yeah, we do.
But you know what? Y'all are ready.
Yeah.
Y'all are ready. A year ago, y'all weren't ready.
Well, and Chili was even gone while I was gone.
Yeah,
That's true.
I missed
It
a
was short time.
Wednesday podcast.
Little vacation.
And we knew he was just gallivanting down in Florida, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, he was just gallivanting around,
Yeah.
living life. But I missed you, man. I did. First of all, I wanted to ask you, it's a big commitment to fly over to a third world country, and you were in Kenya. It's a big commitment, not only in your time, but just in the aggravation of being on a plane for how many hours?
16 or 17 hours in the air.
Yeah. So total time, you probably had 20 hours in
Yeah.
getting over there. You know what I mean? And then knowing you're going to be somewhere where you're going to be, you know, exposed to all kinds of different sicknesses. The food's not going to be right. The sleep's going to be messed up. You're going to be crapping in a hole. You know, all that. That's a big commitment. That's a big sacrifice and a big commitment. So I was just wondering what inspired you to go out and do this thing, because it really is not typical of your homebody, I like everything in order, you know, personality.
Yeah.
You or you know, even Caitlin, it's not something typical for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy other cultures, just aside even from the gospel. I just enjoy other cultures and seeing how other people live, because it can add a lot of insight and value into the way that we do things.
You can watch that on National Geographic.
Yeah,
though.
but you don't get the right feel. But I've wanted to for a long time go over to somewhere like that for the sake of of the gospel or for spiritual reasons. And I was running with Bob one day, and I was just telling him that, like, it's just been on my mind, and I was just saying, I really would like to go do that one day, but I don't really know what it looks like, or the opportunity's not there. And he's like, well, we're going to Kenya in July, and he gave me the dates, and I talked to Caitlin, and surprisingly, Caitlin was just like, okay, yeah, let's. And I was like, well, I better take the opportunity while she said okay, because as things went on, and both of us get more time to think about it, then the thoughts start to creep in of the things that you say. Like, you feel the drawing to do it. You say, okay, yeah, this is something good. This is something that the Lord has called us to. But then you start to think about all the other things and all the other things people tell you of what are you going to eat when you get over there? And the travel, don't you know how far that travel's going to be? Don't you know how stove up you're going to be, and the jet lag, and how much money it's cost? And there's a lot of people in America that could benefit from that money or the things that you're doing. And so for me, it was just really something that God put on my heart to go do, and all of those things didn't matter. If I said that they didn't influence me in some way, I would be lying, because you do hear that, and then you try to apply the logic to it, and you say, well, it really doesn't make sense. It's probably not the most effective, but the fact that the Holy Spirit put that on my heart to do trumps all of those other reasons. Everything else, then they all just fall by the wayside, because logic doesn't work when God calls you to do something. And and we use that term that God calls us to do that, and we think it's going to be this like revolutionary thing, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it is just for you and not for everybody else. But I really did believe that about this trip, and was prayerful about being conscious of what happened while I was over there. And so that's really why I went. And the short answer is because that's what the Lord had put on my heart, and really for quite a while, But this opportunity presented itself and worked out with everything, and we were able to do it.
Well, what's now that you've experienced what, we in the American church call a mission trip, what's the purpose of it? Like, what's the purpose of it all?
Well, I think they're all different. For us, the local church here gives a man over there money. They give him like $20,000 a year. And he is overseeing multiple and starting more churches all around Kenya. And so he's stewarding this money. The American dollar goes really far in Kenya. So they're able to, collect this amount of money, give it to him, and then he is spreading the gospel within Kenya. And so the purpose of our trip was to go over there, one, I think, to be good, like make sure, hey, is he still using this money? How is it being purposed? Is he doing what he says? Not that they question anything that he was doing, but I think that's just due diligence. But then also to encourage those pastors, because like it or not, the American in Kenya is like a big deal to them. Like when they see they call them the Mazunga. That's what they say when they see you. When they see the white people there, it's a big deal.
It lends credibility.
Yeah. Charles was saying, like, if the locals see the white people in this church, then they're going to go to that church, because to them that's saying, like, oh, this is legitimate. It's enough for them to come over here and go there. So now I'm going to go there. And I think it's also big encouragement to the pastor. And in a way, you say, well, I don't really want to be used like, I don't want to be elevated or lifted up. But if God puts you in that situation and can use you to encourage that pastor just simply because of where you come from, then so be it. Like, it's not that they don't know me again. They're not worshiping me. But if God can use me to go there and give me something to say, because I even thought, here we are, we've flown all the way across the world, and we're going to this church with like 4 people in it. And this pastor is leading, one of the local places we went to, and it's 4 people here. But it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there was one person there. It's just the fact of that if that's what God has called you to do, and He gives you this message to give them, then that's all that you need to know. And it really was cool how I was telling Chad when we were running, typically for me to put together a 20 or 30 minute speech is not doesn't come natural to me. Like we talk about resurrected and I'll spend 8-10 hours putting that message together. And the Holy Spirit really just did speak through me. I feel like just the message that they had within 10 minutes. I just on my notes on my phone outlined this with scriptures, and it wasn't anything of me. But for me to have done that for Resurrected or whatever, I would have put a lot more time into it because I had the time. But with the 10 minutes I had, then the Lord used that and just gave me the message like that. And so that was cool for me to be able to experience in those situations where I didn't know I was going to be speaking. I just thought like we were visiting and would encourage him on a personal level, not actually sharing, to however many people are there. And so going to those places, no matter whether it's 2 or 3 people or 200 people or 1,000 people.
Well, we feel like I think we feel pressure that when we preach a message to first world people, we have to be intellectual,
right? Yeah,
if that makes any sense. Like the words on the page aren't enough,
right?
We have to inject our first world intellect into the message of the words on the page. And that's something that I've been really trying to do too, Blake, here lately is if we're going to talk, like our running videos we're doing, like the messages, it's just literally just breaking down the words on the page, not with my own intellect.
Right.
But hey, this is what it's saying.
Yeah.
And that's pretty simple,
We want to look at the Bible oftentimes like it's this, like it's got this hidden code, like here's the words and at face value this is this, but there's this code in here, like, Jesus said this and so that means that, and there is things like understanding culture and context, but not everything is a hidden message, and not everything you have to spend 2 hours on one verse. I mean, the gospel is that simple, like it says, and other things are that simple. Again, some things do take some.
But in the American church, everything's an argument.
Yeah,
everything's an argument. Mm-hmm. Well, in Kenya, your formal title is Minister Break.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were calling me Pastor Break first, and I said, "Well, I'm not a pastor, so."
You're Minister Break.
Yeah. Yeah, the Charles is his tribe, that they don't have the letter L in their native tongue. So sometimes there's a guy named Ryan. He said, "Have you seen Lion yet?" I said, "No, we hadn't seen any. You think we'll get a chance to?" And he was like, "Oh, no, Lion." And he was talking about Ryan. Because so they don't pronounce the L. So yeah, that's why I was Minister Break.
Dang.
They had it up on the screen. BRAKE.
One of the guys asked Bob when I wasn't around. He said, "So what is a break?" And Bob said, "Well, it's actually Blake, BLAKE." And he said, "Oh, okay. So what is break?" And he said, "That's just his name."
Why could they not say Ryan?
Because
I thought they didn't have an L.
That was the thing. They would do the L for him, and then they would talk about the brake on the car. He was talking about he had a wreck he had gotten in. He said, and I pushed the brake, and I was like, "That's it." So I don't know what.
So they switch an L and an R.
Yeah, it's something.
That's bizarre.
Something strange.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Well, walk us through day by day what you guys were doing, man. Like.
Yeah. Well, when we first got there, we spent some time with Bernard, and he is the director of Awana for East Africa. And so Awana is like a kids program. I don't know if it's just Baptist churches that do it. I'm not sure. But at any rate, it's like a kids program from, kindergarten up to even high school age. And so we spent some time. We went to a church that would be, or a school that would be considered wealthy. And it was nice if you were comparing it to other church. I keep saying church, other schools there in Africa.
Nairobi?
No, it was on like the outskirts. Membly, Kenya was the name of it. And so in America, that school would have been like really rough,
Been like school in Somerville.
Yeah, probably so.
Chattooga County, yeah.
And so we got to spend some time with them. They were playing their games, but they would recite their memory verses for us. And we got to play around with them and speak to them a little bit, and they were kind of showing us what they did. But then, so one day we were there. The next day we went to the Kibera slums, which is like the largest slum in Africa. And these people are living in, like, probably 10 of them are living in a room this size, and they're just doing everything in that room except crapping and peeing, and they're doing that in the river that's running through the middle of the slums. And they're just little tin buildings, and apparently the cartel owns those buildings, the like kind of warlord, drug kind of cartel things, and charging these people some really small rate. And they were saying it's interesting that they built some like apartments basically for some of these people to start getting out of that. And they say that they would come out of it for like a few weeks and they wouldn't have it. They'd go right back to the slum that they were in. I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of times we do the same thing because that's what we know and that's what's comfortable. And so we spent some time there. They've got like a 3-story building where they're doing school for just the kids in the slums, and they're doing teaching them the word.
Who is they?
Well, so Awana's doing, like, Awana's is the one teaching that. I don't know if the school, there's just teachers that are coming in there. I don't know if they're paid or if they're volunteered.
Kenyan teachers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. There's really no.
But it's funded by, what would you say? Like, I guess, like you said, the Baptist denomination.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of money through Awana for that program, and then probably through some of the Baptist denomination is probably giving some money.
And they're just vetting these Kenyan teachers to come in and run these programs.
Yeah. Okay. So like Bernard being over all of East Africa, they clearly trust him, so then he's vouching, hey, we're doing this in there, and Crossway donates a bunch of Bibles. We gave away like really nice Bibles, like 200 Bibles or whatever, and so they're getting a lot of donations and funding through just these nonprofit or different kinds of organizations. But they're teaching them to cook. It's not a lot of the we think they are teaching them academic things, but then also like they've got some kid walks up there with a stringer full of fish. I don't know. Hopefully he didn't just catch him out of the sewage creek. I don't know. But he got a whole stringer full of fish, and they're up there cutting those fish up and grilling them, and the girls are over there dicing up vegetables on the retaining wall, and, they're teaching them, like, life skills, but then also English and writing, and so they're educated. Like, a lot of times we associate poverty with ignorance, and I think that's true a lot of times, but I mean, the kids and the people are really smart over there, so it doesn't always mean that if you don't have a lot that you're really dumb. That's not true across the board.
Yeah, especially over there because there's just not the opportunity to have a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe more so in America that would apply if you don't. If you're living in a slum, you might be ignorant because there's so much to be had here, but over there you could have a large percentage of people living in slums who have the intellect to be successful, but there's just really not a way to be successful. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of I was going to ask you about that. Is that not why that thought is prevalent? Because I don't think it's true that you should assume that a poor person is dumb or stupid or whatever. That's ridiculous. But when it's a society at large, like you talked about, there's no opportunity there, so that's why that's not true. Well, there's some sort of systemic problem why innovation and advancement in technology is not taking place in a country at large.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
that should. I'm not saying it means they're stupid. I'm saying it means like that should be investigated. Like, why is that? Because I believe there really are probably geniuses all over that country and all over Africa, as well as just regular population of normal / high intelligent people. So is it a choice that there's not more advancement and changing in living standards? Like what is it? You know what I mean? Like, or what is a government structure preventing people from that, from the people that are actually, you know, and breaking through with technology? Like what is that? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean that would be an interesting. It'd be interesting to hear like the results of some sort of in-depth study on that, because when you look at that entire continent as a whole, how far behind they are. I mean, that entire continent,
and it's not for a lack of intelligence of people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, there's a weird answer to why that must be, because like you can look at literally every country on Earth. They have vastly different levels of technology and advancement and everything else, however you wanted to look at it. But there's not this great disparity in intelligence. I mean, it's it's fairly standard across the board.
In the human.
Yeah, right. In the human, like it's fairly standard. Yet there's this vast difference in living standards and technology. All that, I don't know what that is. It's not because of that. So what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, like you said, choice. Here in America, if you're living like that, that is a choice that you're living like that.
Yeah.
Because you can go have opportunity to work, you can have opportunity to learn. And I do think the best thing that people can get out of that poverty is education. I think the more educated the person is, the more they're going to realize, oh, really basic. I need soap when I wash my hands. Okay, I can speak English. Now I can communicate with a larger group of people. So if I have this thing I want to do, I can now present it to more. So really, that would probably take no telling how many people out of the situation they're in, just if they had the ability to speak English and not just I'm sure everybody there speaks Swahili, but then you reach a different group of people when you're able to speak the English, and it presents you in a different manner to people. And
well, it's strange too when you look at, and I don't want to get too sidetracked because I want to hear what you did the other days, but there's a lot. I think there's a lot of pieces to the study of that question that you asked, but there is also something very strange. The white man was born with some desire to like build and like advance. It's like when the white race has like colonized the earth throughout human history. And it's like when you look at Native Americans, for instance, they were totally happy, I assume, living the way that they lived.
Yeah.
And you look at these people in Kenya, and I would bet that they're probably happy.
Oh, yeah.
Living the way that they live. And it's like, what is it about the white race that wants to come into a place and like, no, we have to build buildings and we have to bring in technology and we have to make roads and we have to like fill every single space and destroy all the land and exhaust all the resources. And it's weird, man. Like you can't even explain that. Yeah. Like, but there are differences in terms of like cultural differences between these, I guess different races of people. But I guess it just goes way back into heritage and that type of stuff,
Yeah, and I mean with that comes the white man, many of them that are wanting that are educated. They're to the point like, okay, now we're doing this. Well, we can do this better. And then the next generation, well, we can do this better. And so I think that has something.
That's why I've always hated white people. It's like, what is wrong with y'all stinking white people, man?
The Spanish did that too, though.
Oh yeah.
The Spanish did it too.
Yeah, but they kind of quit after a while. They said, this ain't all
because the
that.
white people.
No, like you said, I don't want to get too sidetracked either. It's because I think you notice that so much and you think about it when you go over there. It's like, I don't even agree with your assessment of like how that's happened. I mean, I think it's a natural inclination to, whenever there's disease, try to figure out, hey, what might work for that? Like that's how everything was discovered. It's like you said, washing your hands, that cuts down on half of the things that are killing us. It's like that's a natural instinct to try to figure out, why is this happening? Let's stop that. So that ends up snowballing into things that we don't like all this freaking technology, you know. And that's just hard to stop. But like the initial reaction of like, you would think everybody in 2025 would be to the point of like, okay, we're gonna change the way we live on a mass scale because it's being adopted slowly by everybody in the culture and society to the point of where we're at least gonna, you know, really elevate living standards and cleanliness standards and all of that because it just makes sense.
Well, their culture is what keeps them that way.
Yeah.
Because there is no hurry unless you're driving. Like, they're really crazy drivers. But they don't get mad. Like, everybody tailgates everybody. Everybody cuts everybody off.
That's what you do.
People drive up the wrong side of the road on cars and motorcycles, and you miss your turn, you just turn around and go the opposite way.
I'd fit in well there.
So I thought about Corn over there. I told Kat, I said, Corn would have a darn nervous breakdown here.
They sure would.
But, you know, so they're not in a big hurry. Charles, he's 53, and he said, I just found out just in the past couple years, I'm allergic to milk. He said, I've been drinking milk all my life, and my throat's been spasming. And he's like, I just thought, okay, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, I just found out I'm allergic to milk. So they have these things come up, and they just say, this is the life I've got. I guess my throat's just going to spasm. And, but we'd have it one time, and we're to the doctor. Yeah, what's going on with me? Is this – and he – so that kind of shows some of why they're that way. It's like, here we have these problems. Here, this is just the cards we've been dealt, and we're just going to live life and get by with it. And so I think that just their mindset keeps them where they're at, and they're happy with it. Like, that's fine. We think everybody should live like us because we got it so good and we have all these luxuries, but, like, they're living life great over there.
Yeah. Well, I don't think everyone should live like us, but I think – you know, like you said, when I don't know how bad sickness is over there and how many more people die young because of various things. Yeah. Like, I'm just saying I would think by now just it would be different. I don't know, trying to stamp that out, but
yeah,
just as a natural reaction to it.
Right.
You know, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I think they just see it as a way of life. You know, not degrading them, but almost like, like the deer. It's like the deer got sick and it died, and it's like they just carry on with life. And
we probably try to stop that too much.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure.
Yeah. So we spent a little time there, and, to the same point, those kids, there's probably 300 kids doing the Awana thing, and, man, they were happy as can be, jumping up and down. They're have wore holes in their Crocs, have on just dirty clothes, but they're just loving life, man. And so it was cool to see kids that young in that situation, so happy, memorizing scripture, worshiping Jesus in that setting. It was just really cool to see that. So we did that the first 2 days. I guess the third day we went to this orphanage, and they are getting their kids from the government. The government has a lot to do with orphans there and the management of them. They don't like to adopt them out to other countries. They want the Kenyans to stay in Kenya. And so this orphanage has, I think they said 37 kids from anywhere from like just walking and talking up to like a senior in high school. And so they have a school there with teachers, and then they have a farm, and the kids live on site. So they have bunk houses and everything. It's totally self-sustained. So they have solar panels to run their water pump from the creek. There's a creek down at the bottom that pumps water up. And they have cows and all of their greens and fruit, and even down to the point that they cook on the, with their stoves and everything from the methane produced from the cow crap. It pipes it up to the kitchen, then desulfurizes it so it doesn't stink, and that's just what they cook with. So everything on the farm is self-sustained for the 40-something people that live there, including the staff.
On 5 acres.
2 acres.
2 acres.
And probably 3/4 to 1 acre is the buildings, like where they're sleeping, the schoolhouse, the kitchen, all of that. And then they're farming probably 1.25 acre. And it's on a hill. The farm's on a hill. And he has terraced this hill and used old banana trees that he staked in the ground to prevent the erosion.
Yeah.
And then down at the bottom is his compost pile. And he's grown some trees there. And the tree's like 40 feet tall. Those kids are out there climbing those trees by hand with a machete and limbing them for firewood, and then also to let more sun in. But he, grew the trees for firewood. And they've just skinned the tree all the way up. But, I mean, those jokers are high. And they're climbing them with no ropes, just by hand, and cutting the limbs off, stacking up their firewood. They've got a couple greenhouses there. So it was really cool to see what can be done on 2 acres of ground.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, 2 acres. They are sustaining 40-something people. The cows, now it's not like a big green pasture. The cows are just eating hay, and they've got this little spot that they're in. Some people would think it's cruel, but it's not. They're feeding the cows, taking care of them, they're milking them, and so he actually gets so much that it's more than they can eat. So some of the stuff he sells to the market and the local people, like the milk or maybe some of the food that they're growing. So we didn't get to see the kids there. They were in school while we were there, but we saw a few of the really young ones that weren't in school yet. So that was really neat to see what can be done and just how innovative they are with the things they have. Like, he didn't go buy some wood to build his terraces that he built. He just used the old banana trees that weren't good anymore. And like the methane and, I mean, all of that stuff. Who would have ever figured out how to collect methane to cook with it? So
we live in a consumer culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to be able to go purchase all the things that we need instead of using what we have to accomplish whatever we need to get done. So
yeah. So that was really, really cool to see that. And then after we left there, the rest of the trip was really going to these other churches and encouraging the pastors, speaking to their congregations. A couple of the meetings that we did were like open air. So they would have what they call the market, but it's really like there's like 3 buildings or 3 stores, and they're just in connecting buildings side by side. And they bring their speakers up there. The local church does. They bring them up there from down the hill where their building's at, and they're playing music and all the things.
Did they have to get a permit to do that?
No, nobody worried about a permit around there. One of them, that town was stricken with drunkenness. It's been a plague going on in that town. Not all of them were like this, but this town had a pub.
What are you laughing at?
They had been stricken with drunkenness.
And Charles warned y'all when y'all pulled up in there, didn't he?
He told that's the town Charles is from, and his dad is actually a drunkard his whole life and still is. And Charles has came out of that, but he said that's the problem in this town. And I didn't speak at that place. Bob did, and some of the local Kenyans, but they would be speaking, and the old drunk would come out of the pub stumbling around, and he'd get up there close to the teacher or whatever, and somebody would come out and wrestle that cat down to the ground and drag him up the alley and leave him, and he'd come back in a little bit, and they'd have to kind of fend him off. They were climbing the darn poles on the walls of the building out front that's holding the awning up, climbing up and hooping and hollering. It was wild.
Huh.
One guy come up to me, he said, "I've never seen an American dollar. You got one I could see?" I said, He said, "I just want to touch one." I said, "No."
He was wanting to gank that
Yeah.
thing. Wasn't
He said, "How about could I just see it, not even touch it?" And I said, "No, bud, I don't.
he? Yeah.
Not showing you one." And, so they were all kind of, and that as dark started to set, Bob told Charles, he said, "Look, we need to get out of here, Charles, because the people's kind of starting to come up." We had a bunch of the Mazungas there with us, the deaf ministry, which also went over there with us to work with the deaf people, came to that meeting, and so we left that one about nightfall.
You said it was they spent a lot of time out at night, right?
Yeah, especially in town like Nairobi. We got in like midnight to the airport, and we were going home, and everybody was out walking the streets. The markets just lined the streets there, outdoor markets. They're selling fruit, they're selling meat, clothes, whatever, and everybody's walking, and a lot of them have these motorcycles, and they will put whatever they can on those motorcycles. I've seen up to 4 people on one. The seat's like this long, probably 2.5 feet or something. I seen a guy hauling like 4 pine trees on them, probably about the length of this room. The pine trees were. I seen 2-3 people in a goat on one. They got boxes stacked up, all kind of stuff. So they're doing all of that. And I asked the guy driving us, I said, "What are all these people doing out?" He said, "They walking all the time, walking." And he said, "That's all they do." And I asked him, "What do you do for work?" And he's like, "Well, just whatever." Like here, you ask somebody that, and they're like, "Oh, I do construction, or I do this," or they don't do that there. Not all of them, not many of them.
They hustle.
That's it. Their whole life is a hustle. It's a hustle to eat. It's a hustle to get water. It's a hustle to live, to earn money, whatever. And so
I imagine it's hard to sell stuff, too, in such a poverty-stricken area. I mean, even if you went out and collected you up a little wood, I'm gonna sell wood today, firewood. Well, it's gonna be hard to find
Ain't
a
nobody
buyer.
got you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
How does everybody hustle like that?
Yeah.
looking for, they probably trade stuff.
Yeah, I bet they do. I bet there's a lot of trading going on.
Yeah.
So was that one particular area stricken by drunkenness because it had the pub in it? Like you can't get alcohol nowhere else, or what was the deal with that?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know why that one town was and the other wasn't. I don't know if the pub came about and caused that, or came about because of that. But
because they were drunks there, they said, "Let's go put a pub there."
Even things here, which drunkenness is different here. It's kind of, but people are able to get around so much here.
Yeah.
So you can have towns 20 miles apart. There, the towns and the shops are so close. It just seems like a perpetual shop. You say, I just passed a watermelon and pineapple stand a mile down the road, and this guy's selling them too. But they're not competing because everybody's traveling on foot for the most part.
Right.
And so it's just like one continuous town and market. And so, but you get up like 3, 4 in the morning, them jokers are still going. But about 6, 7 daylight, there's nobody out.
So they on that Chad and Chili schedule.
I think they're big time night folks. A lot of them hustling all night.
They ain't gonna show up on time.
No, Charles and them were pretty good about it. But for the most part, if somebody said, "Hey, we're gonna do this at 8," it was gonna be between 8 and 9. So you kind of call the earliest time that you would be there.
We're on to something, brother.
We could live good over there.
We are on to something.
It made me slow down because I would get like, we'd be done eating and I'd be like, all right, let's get on to the next thing. And now you might sit there another hour after everybody's done eating.
We just run everywhere.
Now we'll get up while
late.
somebody's still eating, won't we? Over here.
Yeah.
We'll get up while somebody's still eating.
Oh man.
So we went, encouraging those churches, teaching in the open air markets. And the cool thing about that to me was in America, we do church inside the building. We have a meeting of the church inside the building. But when you have those open air meetings, I was sitting in one and I thought, I could see now the Sermon on the Mount or Jesus teaching off the boat. It kind of makes more sense. Like he just found this spot and said, let's sit down here and I'm going to teach all about this. And people come down and, when I spoke in one of those and like you get to talk to the people, like I'm up there sharing the gospel and I say, hey, you folks sitting over there under the general shop awning, like this is for you, and you can talk to them, and they'll come up and be a part of it. Some of them just passing by, not stopping at all. But so it was cool to get some sort of glimpse into what that looked like for Jesus in the Bible versus here. You're not hearing that unless you make the conscious effort to go inside the building and listen. You're not going to hear it.
But how do you think an open air, something like that would go in a town here in America?
Well, I think it could have definitely accomplished the same thing. There are many things in place now that are going to hinder people from doing that. You probably have to get a permit, and you probably have to do this and that. And a lot of people are going to look at you like you're crazy because you're doing it. Over there, I don't think it's looked at as crazy. I think it's much more accepted, but I certainly don't think that's a reason to not do it. I don't think that's a reason to not do it. But, now they're doing this. They're like having their meeting there. So there's people from the local church there sitting down that have come there to hear that, and they've just chosen to do it out in the open. It's not just like we're going to set up a stand and there's going to be a couple guys here teaching and nobody's here to listen. There was an audience existing. It was 4 or 5 people, maybe 10 at the most, that were there prepared to listen to what was going on. But then as people come and go, they're able to hear it too. And so I just thought about that and thought about, Jesus probably set those up knowing that the Pharisees were right around the corner, and he said, I'm about to teach on this because I know that they're going to hear it and come over here. And so I think it could be something cool to do here, honestly. I think it would be cool for our congregations here. People try to amass a large amount of people. So it would be strange if your church of 500 people, like you just couldn't do it. But a small group of folks that have a Bible study in their house that want to be able to share that word, it would look weird and people would laugh at it and call you crazy and say it's dumb. But like, why would you go inside? Why would you draw within?
Well, I'm beginning to picture how this could work. You're talking about it that way, like you said, because there are spaces, even like where we live in Rome, that are like public spaces, like down there on the river where there's that little sitting area with like a little...
The water fountain and stuff?
Yeah, the water fountain and all that. Like you could do something like that there without any big production or speakers or, like you said, it's just you and some believers just having a meeting there that is... You don't have to have signs, or you just sit down and I do see now how that could actually work, but yeah, I guess a big thing that stops us is that mentality that like if it's not drawing a certain number of people in, well, why are you going to waste your time doing that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think they even feel a little bit of that. I think even some of those pastors were discouraged or maybe even embarrassed about us showing up. Like they want things to be really nice and like we have all these people, but It's not about that at all. And we had to get out of that mindset here in America that we've said it before. When the pastors get together, what's the first thing to say? How many you got? And they want to talk about how many people got saved. Not once over there. We were probably said in 5 or 6 different meetings, not once did they say, hey, raise your hand. It was at the end, if they said anything to the effect of salvation, it was that, hey, if you feel the drawing of the Holy Spirit, I encourage you to yield to that and to repent of your old ways and believe in Jesus. And they didn't even ask, come let me know. They didn't ask, raise your hand. I assume they just thought, if that happens to you, you're going to tell somebody.
Yeah.
It was like they're telling them what, maybe you're experiencing this is what it is, and this is how I encourage you to respond. And that was it. It was left at that.
Well, yeah, why churches ask that and ask you to fill out the little card and hand it at the end and do all this mess is not so they can follow up with you.
No.
It's so they can have the number and record the number.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
I mean,
and then that is a reason for them to not follow up with you, because like you accomplished it.
Yeah.
On to the next one. Let's see what can be if we can get another one.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's not every time that's done. It's out of that mindset, and hopefully there is genuine care about, hey, well, we want to hear from you and know how you're doing, and we'll actually check in with you. But yeah, like you said, anytime you're around gatherings like that, you hear. It's purely so that you can record a statistic.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
Who even cares?
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's interesting that they don't do any of that.
Now, I'm sure it does go.
Around where you were at.
Man is I've learned the same. Man is the same, regardless really where you go, and they have a lot of the same struggles, just in different ways. And so I'm sure that is a thing over there, but the places we went, it wasn't. And I think it's just because they have real desire and real problems. So they're like, we're not even concerned with making a note of how many people, they're just trying to spread the gospel. Just put the word out there and hope that people do it, so that then they do that for somebody else. So that was, that was unique to see that. And
it's cool to take away those perspectives and really have a comparison. Not that they do everything right, or we do everything right, or they do everything wrong, or we do everything wrong, but having that perspective and then being able to blend that with, our perspective that we have living in the place where we are, and being able to kind of blend that in and think about, different avenues of ministry, even back here,
Yeah, I mean, we got to spend a week over there, which is, a fairly short time. Really, I wasn't getting on my phone because, one, I didn't have service sometimes, or, wasn't trying to run up, whatever. And we had conversation in the car, so we weren't listening to music. And so really I lived a week undistracted from things and from phones and from music. And then you come back here and you realize how many things are such a distraction that seem good, that start out really small, then you spend more time on it and more time on it, then you get more things, and you get so distracted from the mission that God has called you to. And that's probably
utterly distracted.
Yeah, I mean,
utterly distracted.
You're rendered useless.
Chili hates my new video style that I'm doing now. He hates it. But it is getting. We are getting back to the only thing that matters with what we've been called to do and the abilities that the Lord has given us as a team.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. And that's the reason I'm so confident that it will indeed work. Not in the sense of that it will be, we will never be the biggest.
Right.
Like, get that out of your mind.
Yeah.
We cannot be ever the biggest, because if we wanted to be, you will have to make a pact with the prince of this earth.
Yeah.
But it will work in the sense of it will accomplish what the Lord has set us apart as an organization to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, and so in that, we have to put our faith that the Lord will indeed bless that and continue to make a way for us to do that.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
you say this is what the Lord has called us to do, and it doesn't really make sense to achieve the biggest things and do the most, like you said. But the very fact that you are doing that is assurance that the mission will be continued. And if it's not, then it's not like the Lord will have something else for you. You will never be faithful to the Lord and Him say, "That's all I got for you." On that day, you will die. That'll be the end. And so, all of the things we were even talking today on the run, and just casual conversation. We were talking about gold and different, investing and stuff. And I said, but really, all that's just a distraction. It's just a distraction.
I like that gold, boy.
Get them diamonds. But so that was cool to get to experience that. And I mean, even in the week I've been home or however long, I cleaned out a lot, gave a lot of stuff to y'all. But I even in the week I've been home, it's like I look at this or research this, and I have to keep telling myself, that's just a distraction. It's just pulling your mind away from, even if it's not the time you could be doing something, it's distracting your mind. It's pulling your mind away from the things that are in alignment with God. And so that was a big takeaway for me, just to live a simpler lifestyle with less things. Because when you have the ability to buy something, you live your life for a while and it's like, all right, I'm kind of saving up to get this thing. But then when you have the ability to, not that I'm rich, but if I want to go buy something for $1,000, then I could go buy it. I don't have to put back $100 a week for 10 weeks. And so it's hard to regulate that sometimes and not buy the thing and just say what I have is good enough. Like you live, Corn. You don't buy nothing.
Very rarely.
Even the things you need, you won't buy. A shoulder brace, $50 shoulder brace that make your life better. You won't buy it.
Like a Kenyan, this is just what's supposed to be going on with
I'm not kidding you. A lot of times when I was over there, I thought these people are living. That's how cornbread lives. Not in the life, but like the frame of mind. And
it's that conversation is interesting to me in so many ways, because even yesterday I was talking to some brothers and sisters that I saw in town, and if you come up to me and ask me how I'm doing, that's the first thing people ask you, how you're doing. If I'm not doing good, I'm going to tell you I'm not doing good. And so they come up to me and they walked up to me, and I had just been sitting with my friend who's passing away for a long time, and I was just exhausted. And they come up to me, and I just had this look on my face, and they said, "Are you? I'm so and so. Do you recognize me?" They thought I was like out of it, And they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Nah, I'm not really doing that good." And I told them what I'd been doing, and and they said, and then I said, I've been sitting with my friend, and I said, I tell you what, it just makes me realize all of this crap, it don't mean a hill of beans.
No.
You think I give a crap what's going on with Iran and this and that? But then they said, well, that stuff really does actually matter. And I thought, well, okay, you can think that, but it really doesn't. All of this crap is marching on, son. Like when the scripture tells you to live in this world as a stranger and as an alien, that means you have no concern for all of this crap because it's marching on. Like Chili said last week, last Wednesday, Chili, when you was talking about all this stuff is being accomplished. Well, we as the church think that it's our job to intercede in some way and change the course of things and delay the course of things.
That's funny you said that. Me and my wife just had a conversation about that, about really, if you look at the end times in particular, and you're doing anything to try to delay that, well, that's really weird and not going to work. But if you're doing anything to like try to speed that up or advance that, that's just as bizarre. Yeah. You're not going to do anything to affect it. Like, you are doing what you, like that. You're trying to play God, really. Like, I'll tell you what, I'll bring this on. Like, I'll do this. I'll go see. They need a red heifer in Israel. I'll ship it to them. Yeah. Like, just let it happen. Like, what are you doing trying to affect that and like placing all this importance on yourself? And you're going to, I don't know. You're not going to do none of that. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. And you are supposed to do what you know is right and do what you're called to do. And that alone, without the distraction of figuring out timelines, will accomplish what God's will is according to him. Like, I don't know. That's a real weird thing to try to influence that in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why when the Bible says to live a simple life and work with your hands
and mind your own business.
Mind your own business. Basically live in the community you live in.
But we say, but now if we don't pay attention to this stuff, and if we're not involved in government and all this stuff, well, what's going to happen? They're going to take us over, and we're not going to be able to meet, and they're going to start persecuting us and killing us. What's the Bible say about all the Christians throughout history? Hey, they gonna kill you all day long, son.
Yeah.
Does it not?
Yeah.
Does it not? They gonna kill you all day long.
Yeah.
Come on with it.
Yep, just trying to avoid suffering.
I don't know, man.
So I just think that person that met you in town after all this was like, I just said, hey. But another question I had, not to derail things, but you said sit quiet and or live a quiet life and work with your hands. Yeah. And that is interesting in light of what you just did and the Great Commission, go make disciples of all nations. And then also you read about, live a quiet life and work with your hands and don't, like, it's interesting. I think on the surface that can seem like it
conflicts.
Like it's two different lives, right? But
yeah. Well, the Apostle Paul gave us the perfect example of doing that, but traveling the known earth.
Yeah.
With his ministry. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's like the Apostle Paul, every time he would come to a new community, he would live a quiet life, work with his hands, mind his own business in the midst of the people he was there with. You know what I mean?
That's what the Messiah people are doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, and even the people in the villages of Kenya, now Nairobi and the bigger cities, they're not, they're living pretty fast paced. Probably distracted lives like we are, distracted in a different way. But in those villages, they're not, and especially the Messiah, like they're having to work hard. Like they're traveling 5-6 miles just to get the water. They can't just go turn the faucet on or, leave the faucet running while they brush their teeth. Like water is a commodity and you got to work hard for it. And they get up, push their cows, push their goats around, let them feed. That's like their prize, They got a little schoolhouse where their kids are taught, and the women's taking care of stuff around. Like everybody's got their role, the thing that they're doing. And sure, they've got their struggles, probably relational struggles and between villages and things that we don't see. I'm sure that's there, but they're living a quiet life, working with their hands, minding their own business, doing the things that they have to do to survive. And they're also worshiping the Lord. They're receptive to the gospel. And so you really see that, at least to me, like that was a great picture of that. They live a hard life. And
you know what stops us so often, I think, from going and doing a trip like this, putting yourself in those places, What stops us from maybe having a outdoor meeting? What stops us from going and sitting with people who are in suffering? What stops us from so much of this is really, in one word, yourself is what stops you. Okay, and let me explain that to you. We all think that when we go and do these things like this trip Blake just took, or having a meeting somewhere, or going and sit with somebody, we think, well, we're somebody. You know, I'm somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to show up, and I'm gonna have something good to say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have this figured out. I'm gonna go up in here and I'm gonna change this whole equation. But the attitude that you have to have is the opposite of that. It's like, I'm nobody. I don't really have much to bring here, but I'm gonna show up, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can just think of so many people listening to, you know, what you went and did, and like, you know, just thinking, well, you know, if I went over on some mission trip, well, what am I going to have to say to this person who I have no common, you know, experience with? Look, it's just, you just be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're gonna have an open air meeting. Like, I better have a good message.
Yeah.
You know, I better have this squared away. You know, it's like, well, no, I mean, just you know, what is the depth of your understanding right now, and go with that. Like, I'm gonna go in here and for me, it's been going and sitting with my friend. Like, I'm not about to walk up in here and make any of this better.
Right.
I'm not about to walk up in here with any certain wisdom or word to say or impactful anything. Like, no, I'm just pretty much just a nobody. You know what I mean? Like, you almost have to have that attitude to go and do anything, and especially go and do anything that's going to produce any sort of effect in the spiritual realm. Because I think the first thing we have to do is get ourselves and our opinions of ourselves out of the daggone way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. I see that even, you know, in a small way, even amongst us, you know, like even, well, I've seen Chili grow in that a lot, you know, Chili, I think you've thought for a long time, well, you know, I'm not qualified to talk to people about these things or to teach or to any of this. It's like, well, I mean,
I still think that.
Yeah, I know you do. But yeah,
the Lord will use what He has given you understanding.
At
the point you're in. It's nothing good about what you say. It's about what God has put on your heart.
I think if I could sum it all up, I would say get over yourself. And that will open up the door for you to actually start doing things. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense to anyone listening. I know it makes sense to me in the season I'm in right now. It's like, well, that's the first thing that I have to do when I go to see my friend is I have to get over myself. Mm-hmm. And thinking that I'm about to walk up in here and change this situation in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I even thought some of that going over there. Like, I don't have anything in common with these people, and I can't solve their problems. Like, why even go over there, you know? But I'm convinced that they did more for me than I did for them, you know. And
well, how all this works, okay, how all this really works in the spiritual realm is that the Holy Spirit of God is in you, And so, therefore, as you go, you are this ambassador with the Spirit of God in you that comes forth and shines forth through you, not because you're wielding the Spirit, but because that's just what the Spirit does.
Yeah.
That's just the design of God's plan. It's like the believer, the Spirit-filled believer, in any environment is providing encouragement to the other believers who are in that space, but not through their wisdom or their intellect, but simply through the presence of the Spirit of God in them, coming forth through them, not even necessarily in words, but just in presence.
Yeah, when I think if I mean, my mind's metaphorical, and if I think of like when you cut the water on at your house, people are thankful for the water, like they want the water. Nobody cuts the water on and says, "Boy,
Just don't let it run."
Or boy, them plumbing pipes, I really appreciate them getting that water up here. We're just the plumbing pipe, we're like the conduit that the water that is God, as the Holy Spirit that is flowing through. That's what is giving people life, and we're just the pipe transferring.
But we want to cling to our own understanding.
Yeah.
We want to cling to our own intellect.
And want to seem wise.
And what that mean, the clinging to that, what that actually looks like is the reliance upon that to make some sort of impact that you think needs to be made.
Yeah.
Right? And then so you're putting that pressure on yourself to do that, and that pressure is what really makes you ineffective.
Yeah.
Either by way of keeping you from actually going and trying to do anything, or by way of actually showing up to do something and then being ineffective because you are clinging to your own understanding or your own intellect, which is directly in opposition to Scripture. Lean not on your own understanding, or get over yourself, essentially.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, well, were there any specific for you, Blake, like any specific obstacles that were difficult to overcome for you? Or anything that you saw, like certain obstacles maybe that the church over there is facing, or that would be unique to that area?
I mean, I think it's a lot of the same stuff that we deal with. Like, I really, a lot of them were like, yeah, I know we just got 3 people, but, you know, we're hoping for more. And on this day, we usually have a lot more people, like, you know. So that's not unique to them. That's something that is kind of across humanity. But, you know, for me personally, just subjecting myself to that trip and not being in control of everything, not knowing what everything was going to look like. I couldn't prepare. The Lord sustained me and my wife and everybody there healthy. We didn't get sick, but that was something that I dealt with, like thinking about, worrying about, like, is the food going to be clean? Is the place we're staying going to be clean? Is it going to be safe? And so it wasn't a physical obstacle, but it was a worry. I mean, I'll just call it a worry or a fear that did keep coming up in my mind, that after I was there for a couple of days, I got over that. But leading up to the trip, the first couple of days of the trip, just kind of being on edge about that, which caused me to rely on God more in prayer, because I couldn't manage that myself. And we think back home that we can manage those things ourselves because we know where our meals are coming from and we know kind of what to expect. And so we say, you pray to God as an afterthought sometimes, where when you're over there and you're out, it's out of your control. That's the first thing you go to because you say, I can't do anything, when really you can't do anything anyways. And so just for me personally, that that was one thing. But as far as the church is struggling and unique to them, nothing comes to mind that would be any different from the local congregations around here. I think that humans are humans across the board. You know, we think some people are different because of where they live and their circumstances, but in general, the root thoughts and causes and fears are probably all from the same selfishness, pride, fear. Probably all stem from that.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. I appreciate you breaking that trip down for us. Y'all got any other questions for Blake?
You talked about how you liked you had interest in learning from other cultures and whatnot, and you talked a lot about the spiritual aspect of why you went. Was there anything that they did over there you was like, oh, no, y'all ought not be doing this. This is ridiculous.
Not in the ones that we went to.
Well, you talked about how them Messiah people treated their women like their cattle,
Yeah.
which that wasn't within the body of Christ there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the Messiah people in their traditional culture outside, and even probably some of the Christian culture, so maybe that is a unique struggle for them. They have multiple wives, and they don't treat their wives well at all. And so when they come to know Jesus, when they go to their meetings and they talk about that, that's a struggle for them because all their life they've had multiple wives, and you don't bump a cow or a goat or the sons. That's the prize. But if you want to hit your wife with that cane they tote, ain't no big deal. So the way that they treat their wives and marrying multiple wives, that would be a uncommon struggle than the American church would have to deal with, you know. So yeah, I mean, they do stuff like that. Yeah, them Messiah, they'll cane a woman, they'll cane a dog. They hit a dog so hard over there with a cane. He tried to ease up under the tree we was having our church meeting at. One of them jokers walked over there and caned that dog. I'm talking about blistered him. He went out of there squealing. So,
Well,
Yeah.
dog's one thing, but they'll cane their wives.
yeah, they said it ain't nothing to beat a wife over there.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it's just how they value them, you know, or don't value them.
Wow.
They they don't care much about that. So that's a struggle to them, and a struggle to them when they come to know Jesus, because their traditional religion was apparently a monotheistic religion, meaning they just had one God, and they thought that he resided on top of the mountain, just whatever mountain, and they had a tree that they held as holy, and that's where they worshiped. And so that was their understanding of God, which in some ways is not far off from our God. And they just didn't have the Jesus component, and so they they didn't have the Bible, so they steered different ways. And but them being receptive to Jesus and bringing that on board, then they've got some struggles to work through from tradition, just like all of us. We all have things that we have to work through from our old life and our old tradition that we have to put aside.
Yeah, that's true.
So just the traditions are different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest questions I think that non-believers have about all of these cultures that have lived without, have lived worshiping some other deity or something like that. One of the biggest questions that people will try to ask you to discredit faith in Christ is, well, what about all those people?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to accept the answer.
Yeah.
Like, the answer's clear what happens to all of those people.
Right.
Like, they receive justice, what they deserve.
Yeah.
It's like that's an answer that people just get, especially non-believers and even believers. Like, you want to explain away that.
Yeah.
But
I was talking to James Ward the other day, and they do some work over there, or did in the past, and he said that they went over there one time to put on a marriage conference for those Maasai people, and he said that the pastors were saying like,
Sounds like James. doesn't it?
honor your wife and this and that. And he said one of the people in the back raised their hand and said, I've got 6 wives. Which one of them should I honor? And they said they had to take a big step back because they didn't understand that going in.
Yeah.
Right.
What was going on?
That sounds like James, doesn't it? Roll into the Messiah, and be like, it's the worst audience for that.
Yeah. Start with the basics.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, Dad, we got any super
That's
chats
awesome.
today? All right. Outstanding. I'm sure Marty, if he's still alive,
Yeah.
chimed in.
Old James. That cracks me up about James.
Paris James?
No, James Ward. Seeing
Oh,
his
James
face
Ward?
when that happened would have been so funny.
Marty is in here, but he's not first. He's typically first, and he missed
Thank
it this
goodness
time.
he's still alive,
World,
man.
Marty.
Mark Stoddard, tugboat, 3-1 something, came in at $19.99.
That's pretty good, Mark. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you for not disrespecting me with a piddly super chat.
Thank you, CB, for your support / encouragement. God bless you all at 3 of 7 and Brother Garrick.
The most famous guy at the table gets mentioned on the first super
Yeah.
chat. And so anybody that disputes that he's famous, there's your evidence.
Well, I've got another one to back it up. Marty Bingham come in at $19.99.
Thank you, Marty.
He said, number 1, remind me not to mess with cornbread. That's number
There we
1.
go again. Right off the rip.
That boy's got a hair trigger. He'll come off the top rope on you in a heartbeat. It won't take long to scuffle with a man that has calves that size. Ain't nobody got time for that.
There you go.
Yeah, Cornbread's a bad dude,
Thank you.
especially before his shoulder messed up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark and Marty.
He came back in at $4.99. I don't know what he got so tore up about. I might have been talking about somebody else being a neophobe.
Huh. Marty, you just stick with building bridges, Bubba.
Marty Bingham come back in at $9.99.
I bet he did.
I was ordering a new hat for Brooke, so I went ahead and got everybody one. They won't get there at the same time. You'll be able to figure out whose is whose when you get them.
Well, I like my new hat, Marty.
You think that's who sent that?
Yeah, that's who sent that.
That's definitely one of the most legit caps I've
I
ever
bet
owned.
that was Chili's, though. If he
Well, yeah,
said that he
it-
sent multiple hats, you'll be able to figure out whose is whose.
Then that was definitely mine.
Yeah.
I don't know, Bubba.
You literally took my hat. If he sent 4 hats, that was mine.
That one. Well, I'm glad I got to at least wear it for one day.
Thank you, Marty.
Matthew Eldridge come in at $5. Chili is looking jacked. Put some sleeves on and save some
Dang.
ladies for the rest of us.
Dude, we literally were talking about that this morning.
You were talking about that this morning.
About how
I said
jacked
you
I
were
was.
looking slim.
Well, whatever.
Garrett come in at $19.99. Said, thank you,
Garrett?
Corn, for the message on Resurrected.
Oh my gosh, man!
Hey, Garrett.
I didn't set any boundaries to me or my kids, and now I'm a living testament of what happens when you do that.
Oh my gosh,
Love you,
man!
Garrett.
And that's it.
Good night. Well, thank you guys for tuning in.
And thank you, Matt, for noticing.
Lord willing, we'll see y'all on Monday for Monday meeting. Enough said.